When I was graduating Davis, I didn't go directly into entrepreneurship, right? So I was an electrical engineering major and an economics major. And at that time, I wanted to do something so far away from both of them that I ended up going to law school, right? So to get into law school, actually, all you have to do is take your LSATs, right? And that's different than, let's say, medical school, for example, where I think you have to have some prerequisites and all that good stuff. So went to law school, and then if you had an engineering major and went to law school at that time, there was opportunities for intellectual property litigation. So did that for a couple of years, but deep down inside, always wanted to become an entrepreneur, right? So after a couple of years of practicing law as a litigator, then started my first company. And when you think about starting companies, right? I think I was maybe more on the kind of like delusional level, right? Where I said, "Hey, look, I'm going to quit my job. I'm just going to go for it," right? And when you think about entrepreneurship, you really have to think about the situation that you're in, right? And when I say that, it's about your personal situation, it's about your financial situation, it's about where you are kind of in your career or whatnot. Because you have entrepreneurs who are young, right, who just graduate college, all the way from entrepreneurs being in their mid 40s, mid 50s, and so you got to think about entrepreneurship from a situation where you're at, right? And also for entrepreneurship, when I started my first company, I really approached it as solving a pain point, right? And I think you're going to hear this a lot, right? Like, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Because at the end of the day, if you're not passionate about the problem you're trying to solve, entrepreneurship is hard, right? You have to have a higher kind of mission in terms of why you're pursuing what you're pursuing, right? So for me, for example, the first company that I started was a company that really addressed and democratized the professional services industry that allowed consumers like you and I, small businesses, to be able to connect with professional service providers who were super expensive. And for me, that really hit a pain point, because when I was a lawyer and I was charging folks, the billable hour, or the amount that we were charging folks, was pretty high. And that really led to poor representation and underrepresentation for a lot of consumers and small businesses, right? So that being said, when you think about entrepreneurship, you really got to think about, okay, hey, look, like, what kind of problem are you solving, right? So I think three things. So one is basically the situation that you're in. Number two is, the problem that you're trying to solve. And number three, before I kind of like, open it up in a sense, and, you guys can gear me in terms of, where you want me to talk about, entrepreneurship is really a mindset as well, right? It's super scary. It's super frightening. Taking that jump, right, in almost the deep end. But on the flip side, it's liberating, right? It's, it's creative, right? It's almost limitless in a sense, right? So, when you think about entrepreneurship, the third point that I'm trying to make is it's really about the mindset that you have. Admittedly, I didn't know anything about starting anything and anything when I started my first company, right? I just didn't know. I literally just jumped in the deep end and went from there. And, at that time, the first company that I started was in 2009, right? No, actually it was in 2000. Yeah, it was in 2009. And that was literally a decade ago. And there was not that much material online, right? There was no YouTube videos, there was no podcast, there was no literature, there was no articles, no blogs, nothing. And it was literally about me, right, and my co-founder, who I knew as a kid, coming together and just saying, hey, look, let's start this company. And, our schedules literally were like, I would come to his house because we were working out of his house. I would come around 9 o'clock and then leave around 6 p.m., come back, and then go back at 9 p.m., right, with a little intern that we were working with. And then I would leave around like 1 p.m., right? So, working that many hours, we thought that was a recipe to success, right? But that's not necessarily the case in a sense, right? So, I think now it's a whole different ballgame, right? Because obviously you have folks like Aaron, you have so much information online as well. right? About sales, about marketing, about product development, right? About hiring, about, recruiting and all that good stuff. And, the ability to connect, let's say, with investors or whatnot, right? Coming in, I kind of wish I focused really deeply on solving the customer's pain point, right? And when I say that, really understanding the problem and the pain point for the customer, right? Like, what is the pain point and the problem that we're trying to solve? And then, really focusing on not even scaling super quickly. And Aaron and I always have this conversation, like it's not about like, scaling stuff like very, very quickly and breaking things initially, right? Like you really have to understand and take the time and be thoughtful about what type of problem that you're trying to solve, and then make sure that you delight that customer, right? And it can be like one customer, two customers, three customers, 10 or whatever like that. But just make sure that like that customer appreciates your product and is solving such a huge, value, is such a huge pain point for them that they're not going to go, and they're going to use you, and then they're going to start telling folks about you, right?